Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start Spreading the News, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Start Spreading the News podcast. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you all did have a great day, and I hope you had fun and enjoyed some Irish culture on this wonderful day. Just a reminder that this wonderful program is brought to you by Artemisia Publishing, an outstanding publisher located in New Mexico, a traditional publisher who publishes a vast, wide, and amazing selection of great books, including 365.2, From Compton to the Bronx, The Least Among Them, and my wonderful novel. If you have not read Scattering the Ashes, your life is incomplete. That's just like, you know, if you haven't read the classics, your life is incomplete. And if you haven't read Scattering the Ashes, well, it's pretty much the same thing. You really need to read it. So check out Artemisia Publishing. This is, of course, Start Spreading the News, which is affiliated with the Yankee blog, Start Spreading the News. We are there every single day, putting out 3+ articles every single day at startspreadingthenews.blog. And here he is, my co-host, the brilliant, the great, the wonderful Dr. E.J. Fagan. Hello, Doctor.
Dr. Paul, how you doing?
I'm good. My my Blue Yeti is somewhere between here and who knows where. I should have it by next
eventually,
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of these days. It's crazy. It's I think Amazon sent it to the Amazon, and it's on its way. Oh, by the way, Sunday, March 23rd, that's this Sunday at the Yogi Berra Museum, the Northern Region chapter of SABR, the Elysian Fields chapter, is having an event. It's a Celebrate Baseball Day. There will be 3 presentations at the museum, including time to walk around the museum. There'll be a lot of free baseball items that we're giving away, most of it from my own collection. I'm just not going to keep stuff in boxes anymore. I'd rather give it away to people who want it. And so I'll be bringing a lot of stuff. I'll be one of the presenters. Dan Chachowski will do a presentation on Bruce Springsteen and the use of the word speedball in Glory Days. And Tara Krieger will do a presentation on Lou Gehrig's lost pitching career. So it should be a great afternoon starting at noon. You do have to pay admission, not to SABR, but to the Yogi Berra Museum. It's a nominal charge to get in. And if you haven't been there, it's well worth it. That will be noon to 5 on Sunday. All right, EJ, I've got a thing for you. I've got a preposition, and I'm wondering where your thoughts are.
Go for it.
All right. The Yankees need a third baseman. There's this guy. He hit 28 homers last year, 33 the year before, 27 the year before, 38 the year before that. OPS plus last 4 years, 139, 126, 141, 134. The guy flat out can mash. Of course, the guy also doesn't really field well. His D-WAR, I'm trying to find it right here real quickly, is negative 3.6. Last year it was negative 0.6. The year before it was negative 0.5. The year before it was negative 0.3. The year before it was 1.0 negative. It's been negative every single year except 2019 when it was a positive 0.1. He can mash. He can't field. Would you be interested in a player like that on the Yankees?
Sure.
His name is Rafael Devers, and he's
I'll take him. Well, yeah, let's go. I mean, Garrett Cole's ERA alone in a couple of years, once he's back, will rise. So we'll go down. But,
all right. So,
Yankees,
Devers is saying he wants to be traded, or at least
they're not trading him to the Yankees. That's not even like a hypothetical. That's not even worth it. Here's what I'll say. We talk a little bit about like clubhouse problems with the Yankees, and it can get worse.
This is my point. I'm going to come to this. Go
right, like Aaron Boone. Neither of us are big fans of Aaron Boone as a manager. You are less of a fan than I am. But you don't see this kind of thing happening. Now, there's some examples in Yankee history. So Derek Jeter probably should have moved when they traded for Alex Rodriguez.
But to be fair to Aaron
last year,
Boone,
Gleyber Torres. Last year, Gleyber Torres. But Devers is really, really, really bad. And Bregman is really, really, really good on defense. Specifically defense we're talking about here. Like Devers should just DH, right? Like I don't understand why this is like a conflict. Like this is fairly obvious to me. Like dude is like an embarrassingly bad third baseman, has been for a while. He's already gotten paid. So who cares about that? Like at least Gleyber Torres, I understand him saying like, look, I'm a free agent in 3 months. This is not a good time to do this. But he's gotten paid. So like shut up and move. I honestly, I think it is amazing to me that this is still a thing. And that even like David Ortiz got involved. Did you see that? Like this is
I didn't see that part.
So David Ortiz basically publicly commented that Devers is a third baseman. Just imagine Derek Jeter going on TV next to David Ortiz and saying, Gleyber Torres is our second baseman, right? Like that is insane to me. So yeah, it can get worse. And I hope that the Red Sox continue to play Devers at third and their Gold Glove third baseman at somewhere else. I think about what Jose Altuve is doing right now, which is he was going to move to the outfield for Alex Bregman. Still his move to the outfield looks awful. Frankly, I think Jose Altuve, I think the Astros are in trouble right now because Jose Altuve looks awful. And if you look at his underlying numbers, his bat really took a hit last season. He's getting old. So yeah, I'm just, give me the popcorn. Let's do it.
Yeah. I don't want Rafael Devers. I think you make a great point. Gleyber refused to move positions, but that never got in the media. We didn't hear that till way after the season.
Not at all. Well, that's not true. He came out publicly and said, I am a second baseman, but that was it, right? There was not, Josh Chisholm didn't say anything. Aaron Boone didn't say anything. There was one interview where Gleyber Torres was, and I think that chain of events we now know said he was asked to move, said no. And then a reporter asked him, will you move? And he said no.
Right. But it didn't become a big thing. Trade me. And I mean, it was after the trade deadline anyway.
No.
Giving Boone credit and the Yankee organization credit that it never became a thing. And he didn't move, obviously.
Yeah. And we don't know if the Yankees would have been worse off or better off on defense had that happened, right? It was an open question of whether or not Torres could play third. I think they probably should have tried because Chisholm was inconsistent, we'll say, at third base. And he's a better second baseman. Yeah. I mean, but what I'm saying is we don't know how that adds up. Right. You have either way, you have one player playing out of position. So I understand. I think it's a more defensible move than not moving Devers. Not moving Devers is just insane.
Correct. And I don't want a
lot of money to bring
like that. I listen, I have to be consistent. Do I want Rafael Devers, the statistic? Yes, I want the guy with those statistics. I would love him to be on the Yankees. Do I want him on the Yankees to be another guy who is going to refuse to move? What if the Yankees, I don't know. What if what if Devers gets hurt and then Oswald Peraza ends up hitting 285 and hitting 26 home runs or 19 home runs or whatever. And then he's our third baseman next year. No, I'm not moving. Like, I don't want guys like that on my team.
Yeah, and it's also don't make it public, right? Like to me, this is just causing drama for a Red Sox team that is looking to capitalize on the Yankees' injuries. Now, I'll say they have as many injuries as we do, so they may not be able to. But this is a team with aspirations, and Devers is supposed to be the leader of that team, and frankly, I don't think he's doing a great job. I also think Devers is overrated. And I hate to say that because he destroys the Yankees, just utterly embarrasses. It's like David Ortiz, except he doesn't do it against every other team. Rafael Devers is a good baseball player. He deserved the deal he got because he signed a long-term extension. Like I think the Red Sox are happy they signed him to a $300 million deal or something. He is a good player. If I look at his numbers since 2021, his OPS, you want to guess what his OPS is since 2021?
I was reading. I'm not going to guess because I was reading his OPS plus.
It's 873, right? Which is good, right? Maybe we're just spoiled by Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, right? That's good.
Yeah, I think if you look at his OPS plus, he's better than good. 134, 141, 126, 139. Except for Aaron Judge, he'd be the best hitter on the Yankees.
Yeah, and then add in the fact that he's the worst defensive player in the league. Right.
Correct. I started with that. Yes.
Yeah. His WAR 3.6, 4.5, 3.5, 3.7. He's been healthy for the most part. He has received MVP votes, but he's gotten 12th place, 11th place, 14th place, 18th place, 13th place. Like it is okay for him to be the best hitter on your team, but you are probably not winning a World Series if he's the best player on your team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not only going to get worse as he ages. And I just don't. He gets talked about like he's Juan Soto. He's not. He's not Aaron Judge. He's not Juan Soto. He's not Mookie Betts. He's not. He's not half the guys the Red Sox trade away. Right? Like he's not David Ortiz. He's a good, one of the better, more consistent hitters in the league, and terrorizes Gerrit Cole. Right? Like that's what I have to say about Rafael Devers.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, I'd love his statistics on the Yankees. I don't want him. I if there's a guy and he's going to be a problem, it's just because look, this is silly, but
I would still take him. I would still take him 100% because we got Oswald.
I'm to the point where if I'm going to invest all this time in the Yankees, I want to invest in guys I can root for. I'm not going to root for a guy
he's like our annoying guy is better than someone else's. I think there's been a lot of players in the history of baseball who were prima donnas. The Yankees have had many. Just go back to the 1977, late 1970s team, and you'll find like 6 of them.
Teams I grew up with.
Right. I mean, like, look, Reggie Jackson, love the guy, but like, he's the guy who's him and Billy Martin are both exactly the same person. So like, I think that I think that the Red Sox will be fine. I think that Rafael Devers, if he's only 27 years old, right? So like, he's a guy who's been around for a long time and is a veteran in a sense, but is he a leader? I don't know. Right. I mean, maybe the Red Sox, maybe that's something we're going to find that the Red Sox lack this year, have lacked for a while, a central player to be their captain. I think Aaron Judge is that guy. I have my concerns about Aaron Judge's captain. We've talked about that in the show, but I'd much rather be in the Yankees spot in that way, especially just given like all of the up and coming players on the Red Sox. And in fact, I'm looking at their roster right now. I mean, Bregman might be that guy. Maybe that guy really is important to a lot of to that team as a leader. And maybe Bregman and like, I don't know, man, like, I don't know. Does Devers like Bregman? I wonder if there's a world where they're clashing right now. Bregman being the guy who's won a bunch of World Series, who's a leader Rafael Devers won 1 World Series, I think, but is a leader. Rafael Devers is not, and is the incumbent. So look again, like, let's bring out the popcorn. Let's watch it all happen. I'm okay with a little internal drama in the AL East because it's too darn competitive. And if that buys the Yankees an extra win or 2, I'm cool with that. Something, Gerrit Cole not going to be there for a year and a half, so just take like 20 points off of Devers' slugging. And hopefully he's not playing in 2 years when Cole gets back.
Maybe he'll be on the Dodgers. Who knows? So let's talk leadoff hitter. It's actually going to be our Tuesday discussion tomorrow for the Start Spreading the News site. I'll go first, and you can disagree with me, and I'll give you my rationale. I don't like Austin Wells as a leadoff hitter. What's your feeling?
I mean, I think my problem with Austin Wells is that he's not going to be able to do it every day because he's a catcher.
That's my first point in my article tomorrow.
Right. That's my only real problem with it, and that this is a partial solution at best. I think he is probably the second or third best hitter on this team. I think you bat him either before or after Judge in that case. If he's the second or third best hitter, that makes sense. I think he looks fantastic in spring training. I mean, I think Austin Wells is about to have a big year. I don't think there's a lot of good options. So of the options that they have, I mean, I think he's better than Chisholm. I think he's better than Bellinger. Better than Volpe.
Right, so let's just go through this. Let's say he catches 125 games. He's not going to catch that many. If he catches 125 games, that means 20% of the season he's not catching. As you said, it's a partial solution. So you're really not solving the problem. You're only solving the problem a percentage of the time. And I don't think he's going to catch 125 games. I bet it's going to be closer to 100.
Yeah, I mean,
the Yankees haven't had a catch that much since Brian McCann in 2016. It's just not something they do. So
yeah,
so why
but they also haven't had great catchers. I think Austin Wells as a player has the potential to be the second best player in this organization for a long time. I think when you have a catcher who can hit, you're talking about a real backbone. I'm thinking about JT Realmuto, those types of players, Salvador Perez, and they do play a lot. Can Wells play a ton of games? Maybe, maybe not. I think the Yankees are certainly going to try to rest him because that's smart. That's what you should do. Catchers will break down. If you look at what Adley Rutschman, I wouldn't do what they did, what the Baltimore Orioles did with Adley Rutschman, which was DH him when he's not catching. I think you need to give Wells days off, or at least let him pinch hit, not DH the full day. Or if JC Escar ends up being really good, you could start Escar a little more often and then DH Wells. That'd be that also.
Right, but you're still going to need a leadoff hitter at least 20% of the time.
Yeah, but look, one of the ththings I value very low that people talk about a lot is stability in a lineup. I don't care. Right. Like you put your best lineup out there 120 games and figure it out for the other 40 games. This is what happens when players get injured, when players are banged up, players are in a slump, you move the lineup around. And I just don't think it matters that, once a week, Jazz Chisholm's going to have to move up to lead off or something like that. Preferably there'd be a right-handed bat that you could move up, or Jason Dominguez ends up being a pretty good right-hand bat or something like that. I think it'd be great to really, leverage Wells as a platoon player in that sense, because it's about how often you need to sit a catcher, or at least it's nice to have some guaranteed rest for a catcher. So I don't think it's a big deal that, every once in a while you're gonna have to change the lineup up a little bit. Like that's normal.
All right. My second argument against it, he hit 111 last September. Now you ascribe that to maybe he was injured. Other people ascribe that to he was tired. That was the most amount of games he ever played. Same
thing in my book, but yeah.
All right, but it's the most amount of games he ever played in the season, and now we're going to expect him to play more. We're going to make him the leadoff hitter, which also doesn't have him with his pitcher right after the first inning or right before the bottom.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. Right, that could matter. I think that the Yankees don't have a lot of good options, and I think the highest priority for them needs to be leveraging Aaron Judge more than anything else, right? Like, how do you best exploit having maybe the best right-handed hitter of all time in your lineup? And Judge, the gradient between the batters before and after Judge is really important. If the guy in front of Judge never gets on base, then Judge isn't going to see people on base. He's going to get walked a lot. His home runs are going to be solo home runs. And that's not great. If the guy after Judge isn't able to at least threaten that he will punish a pitcher who walks Judge, then Judge isn't going to see pitches outside the plate. He's going to have like a 500 on base. And he's not going to score that many runs. I think that is so much more important than little things. Now, I do think it's interesting. I hadn't thought about what you mentioned, which is, in half the games that Austin Wells isn't going to be warming up the pitcher in the bullpen. That's a real concern. Though, I mean, what if in the first inning? I mean, Austin Wells would normally be out there warming up the pitcher, but like, what if like the 6-hitter comes up in the first inning? Right? Yeah. I mean, does he like jog? I actually don't know. Does he like jog in from the bullpen? I that for some reason I never even thought about that. Because like he's actually should be out in the bullpen, and yet the catchers often bat in the first inning. I don't know. Weird question. Good
right,
point.
Here's my final argument against it. In the history of Major League Baseball, I don't have the exact number because I wrote it in an article that'll appear tomorrow. But I think in the history of Major League Baseball, well, I know this number. A catcher has batted leadoff for a team at least through 2010. Somebody did an article for Baseball Reference that left off at 2010. But for the majority of the history of the Major League Baseball, they've had a catcher bat leadoff on a team who batted leadoff at least 100 times in a year, exactly once. It was Jason Kendall, who's like the only catcher who really ever
pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, but nobody's ever compared Austin Wells to Jason Kendall.
He might be better than Jason
Kendall's
Kendall.
A unicorn. He's a one of a kind, and no other team has ever tried this. And at some point, don't you have to say, like, maybe the combined history of every single team across the history of the game know a little bit more than the Yankees. Like, maybe it's not a great idea to bat your catcher leadoff.
I mean, I think the circumstances here are abnormal, right? So you have a catcher who's really a really good hitter. That's one weird thing, right? The Yankees haven't had a catcher who's a great hitter since Posada.
All right, but just we've back now to that. Posada never hit leadoff. Munson never hit leadoff. Barrett didn't hit leadoff.
Because we had the dumb idea that you need a fast guy to hit leadoff back in the day, right? Like that. That's it. Like it used to be fast guys, even if they weren't good. And now we have a world where Kyle Schwarber was leading off for the Phillies. Shohei Ohtani was leading off for the Dodgers. Shohei
Ohtani is fast. He stole 40 bases.
Well, Shohei Ohtani's the best player in the world, but I mean, he in 1985 he would be batting cleanup. Guy who hits 50 home runs. Like Aaron Judge, I think there's a good argument that he could be batting leadoff. Right. I wouldn't, if you told me that it was Judge 1, Wells 2, like, I think that'd be kind of a good idea. I think that this is one of the reasons why you haven't seen it. And I don't know about the last 14 years. I tried to Google it really quickly and nothing came up quickly. One of the reasons you haven't seen it a lot in baseball history is because like catchers aren't quote unquote leadoff guys throughout history. And that's just not the way that the game works anymore. Again, slow guys are okay to lead off. I think that, like other questions. One, does batting him lead off put more wear and tear in his body? I don't see why. Hell, if he's not warm up the starter, on the road, that's less wear and tear in his body. But I don't see why that would do it, other than he gets a little more at bats. Wells isn't slow, but he's not fast. Is that a concern in front of Judge? Probably not. I thought about it a little bit. I talked about this on the podcast yesterday, actually. I thought about, maybe you want a base stealer in front of Judge because Judge grounds into so many double plays.
I was thinking that too.
And like, I don't think it's a bad
steals a base, then they're going to walk Judge anyway. That's the catch-22.
Yeah, but then you had two guys on for Cody Bellinger, so like, great, right? Like, I think, to me, like, I think, if Jazz Chisholm's on first, stay out of the double play. Maybe he can steal the base. Maybe he can, he can just run out, beat the ball with the double player or whatever. If you had a guy who could fake a 350 on base and was fast, like, I think we could talk about it, but you just don't. Like the other thing about the leadoff hitters, they get the most at bats. And I want a really good hitter getting the most at bats. I don't want Anthony Volpe getting the most at bats. I don't want Jazz Chisholm getting the most at bats. The other thing that I think is interesting, that I think is important here, is one thing we saw that I think really hurt leadoff hitters last year with both Judge and Soto behind them. This might be different with just Judge, but with Judge and Soto behind them, is they just got peppered with strikes. And that destroyed Anthony Volpe. Like, Volpe started off the season just taking every pitch. And when he was in the back of the lineup, he was seeing a lot of balls. And so he was drawing a lot of walks. And so that was a successful strategy for him. But then they moved him to leadoff, and then every single pitch was a strike. And Volpe couldn't punish those strikes. And I think that I was trying to do some research on StatCast a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't really find anything all that interesting. But I just wonder if there's any players on this roster who, especially the lefties on this roster, who are particularly good at punishing strikes. You throw him a fastball down the middle, he's going to hit it. And Chisholm might be that guy, frankly. But I think Wells I'm just impressed with him as a hitter. I don't know if you've watched a lot of his spring training hits.
Zero. I've watched zero spring training.
I don't know if you remember during the middle part of the summer when Wells was really hot. It seemed like every ball was going to right center, right? Like he was just gap. But there's a lot of doubles. There were some home runs. Early in the season, there were a lot of balls like to right center at the warning track. And it just seems to me like Wells and one other guy we can talk about is he's just added a little bit of juice. And those balls are going just a little bit farther. They're going over the fence. They're hard balls to the wall. I mean, his spring numbers, I mean, I hate quoting spring numbers, but he's slugging 710 this spring. I mean, he has been incredible. And I think that like if Wells is going to be that guy that we saw for a couple of months last year, like I don't care where he bats, he's going to be incredible. And I would want to bat him fourth, third, first, one of those. And frankly, I don't think there's a big difference in terms of wear and tear, warming up pitchers, that kind of stuff. All
right, let's move on. Clark Schmidt was
scratched. We're okay. Just get off the ledge, everybody. It's all. I was very scared. I was worried for a second there.
You're not worried about Clark Schmidt?
Did you see the news? He threw the bullpen. He's okay.
He threw a bullpen.
Yep. And if you look at the quotes, what he said was last year he had like a small shoulder thing, and he decided just to try to play through it, and that's how he injured his lat and was out for all that time. And this year he said, you know, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to take a day, throw a bullpen, see how it is. And he did, and he felt great. And so he's now on track to start, you know, probably the fifth start of the season, maybe the sixth start of the season. They can push it back a little bit. And maybe he's like one start behind where he would have been. So he might not be completely built up. But I think we're okay. I think we're fine with Clark Schmidt. Like we don't have to worry about finding another starter somewhere.
Because there is none.
There is. I mean, it's Carlos Carrasco would be your guy, and that's
it already is
a little scary.
Or
Will Warren. I feel like it's going to be Warren. Warren, he got hit a little bit the other day, but I've been impressed watching him pitch. And I think Warren, like I think he's just that much better than Carrasco. The argument for Carrasco is Warren has options, and he preserved the depth.
Carrasco's gone on the 21st. He can opt out.
I also think like put him in the bullpen. Like the Yankees have like 3 spots in the bullpen to fill for a while till Loizaga and Jake Cousins get back. And so put him in the bullpen, let him be a long man. Like, you know, he's not super stretched out, but whatever. He's old. He's Carlos Carrasco. He can get stretched out quickly. That's I mean, honestly, I'd love to see Carrasco in a short inning kind of role, just to see what he can do. Because his fastball isn't really gonna cut it anytime soon. But you know, I would expect. I think Will Warren has earned a spot. I understand the argument to keep him in the minors, but I've just been very impressed with him this spring, and I think that he's probably significantly better than Stroman and Carrasco, and or at least could be. And I think he deserves a shot. We'll see if he gets it. I mean, they'll use him eventually anyway. And maybe Schmidt starts on the IL, and then therefore you give Warren like the first start, and then send him down when Schmidt's ready or something like that. Like that could happen. You know, Carrasco. I'm sure you could talk to Carrasco and figure it out.
All right. So if Schmidt's injured, the Yankee rotation is Fried, Rodon, Carrasco, Stroman, and Will Warren.
It's kind of rough.
That's pretty ugly.
Yeah. You know, the whole, you know, you can never have too much pitching, you know, cliche is a cliche for a reason, right? You know, the Yankees have actually, I think, had a really good record with starting pitching over the last 4 or 5 years. Their last Tommy John before Cole was, I believe, Jordan Montgomery. They kept Cortez healthy for the most part. These guys had injuries, but they managed them in a normal way. And I think like sometimes you get unlucky, and right now the Yankees are just getting pummeled by injuries, and it's hard. And they came in with depth, right? Like they had Stroman and Will Warren as their depth. They had Carlos Carrasco as a fringe guy who maybe not make the team, and then just you have 3 injuries and maybe a fourth. Or JT Brubaker was also, I think, pretty good depth. guy gets hit with a comebacker and falls on his ribs, right? Like these things happen, but it's rough, and it's going to make it really difficult for the Yankees to compete. I mean, I thought they had a clear advantage over the AL East at the start of spring training, but now I don't know if I'd pick them over the Red Sox or the Blue Jays or Orioles, or even the Rays are pretty good. I mean, it's going to be a really tough division. And I think that if I'm the Yankees, like, I'm looking for just some kind of edge, right? Like, I don't want to wait till June to improve my roster. Where can they find that? Your guess is as good as mine. I think there's some I was kind of clicking around roster resource looking for right-handed hitters, and there's I think that if the Yankees want it enough, they could find a bench righty bat. Like, there are guys out there, guys who are older, are out of options, who are one of two righties on the bench for a team, and you don't really need two righties on the bench. Some guys who have a little bit of salary. Like, I think the Yankees, if they want to go get a righty, they could. Maybe they will. I don't know. And it also depends on how much you believe some guys' platoon splits. But there's a lot of righties out there with really steep platoon splits. And, if you could also kind of fill a role where you're, backing up on defense, pinch running, that kind of thing, I think you could be really useful to the Yankees. There's a lot of guys out there that I think they could go and get for basically free that they could cut too, which is another option.
A guy who's a right-handed hitter who's been mashing in spring training left the game today with an injury. They're saying it's not serious, but Paul Goldschmidt. Yeah,
I read that zero concerns about opening day. So look, he's 37. He's been really durable. He's been one of the most durable players in baseball throughout his career. But he's 37. Like, I'm 37. Like, my back hurts every day. Like, I have a young baby, and I'm a shell of myself from not sleeping because I think if I were 24, I think this would be easier. Things hurt, and I think my guess is it's late in spring training. He's taken a ton of plate appearances. He probably is ready to go. I think he's looked okay. I think he just decided to take himself out, and I think that's fine. To me, like, if we hear tomorrow that they send him for an MRI, then there's a problem.
The Yankees have done this many times. Oh, it's fine, just precautionary. Next thing you know, he has 3 limbs.
With Cole, for instance, they were pretty clear. Like, no, this is not good. With Stanton, I don't know, the Aaron Boone's comments were a little off score. I can't even pronounce that right now. I had 2 hours of sleep last night. He was obfuscating a little bit with Stan, but then Stan came out. He's like, "Oh no, this is pretty bad." Like, Stan said it. I think the fact that Paul Goldschmidt said it, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Keep an eye on it. The Yankees first base, they have Dom Smith, but really the right-handed bat is what they're going to miss.
Listen, I wrote an article on this last week. If the Yankees are counting on Dom Smith, this is a strat. We talked a little about this last week. It's a strategy that he hasn't had a 100 OPS plus since, I think, 2019.
I think I was worried a week ago that they were going to DH Dom Smith to start the season. If you looked at the way the Yes Network was interviewing him, they were interviewing him as a major league player, right? They were talking about how great he was and how much of a leader he could be, and how much of a veteran he was. And he was hitting, and so there was a concern there. But I think Ben Rice is just winning that job right now, and in a really impressive way. And we can talk about him in a second. I'll also say Dom Smith hasn't walked once this spring. I think it tells you something, right? Like, he's not Dominican, but Dominicans used to say, you don't walk your way off the island. I think he's not walking his way to the roster. To me, that's suspicious, right? He's swung a lot. He's gotten some good batted ball luck. Some balls have gone over the fence. But he's not working counts. He's not. I mean, he has a 313 on base and a 323 batting average. That tells you something. So I hope that they don't end up there. I think if we talk about Ben Rice, I think Ben Rice has given them at least an out for DH. Who knows if Smith gets a bench spot for a little bit, but for DH.
Well, I hope so. So my last question to you before you could bring up some other topics that maybe I didn't think of. If Schmidt is injured, Goldschmidt's injured, if Schmidt is injured, at what point do you say this is just not the year? Everybody talks about, well, you're going to go big at the All-Star break. You're going to get some guys, this and that. At some point, I think you have to say, this isn't the year, and let's think about what we can do to start to build to next year. For you, where does that fall? Where do you finally go, like, yeah, let's be honest, this is not a club that's going to compete for a World Series?
I think that baseball is more unpredictable than that. And, right now, I think it's a competitive AL East, but things can happen, right? I mean, look, the Red Sox are just as injured as the Yankees right now. I think that, even if you end up as a wild card teams can do a lot. And I think the Yankees are still very competitive. I think they have a wide open window. And I don't know what you would do if you decide to throw in the towel. Like, who would you trade? Would you trade Chisholm, I guess? Would you trade Cody Bellinger? Would you trade?
No, I think you could trade Bellinger if he is healthy. I think you could trade
Evan Williams. I mean, to me, it's not like, look, I think if you're below 500, if you're out of it at the All-Star break or you're not close, I think they absolutely should do it. I think we've criticized them in the past for not 2022 or 2023, one of those years, for not making 2023 for not making that decision. I still think that the Yankees rebuild in the mid 2010s would have been different if during the 2013 season they had thrown in the towel. That's when they had Kuroda and Robinson Cano as free agents. The Yankees roster right now, though, like, it's not a situation where they have a short window. Like, I actually think that the Yankees right now are kind of building a core in a way that's kind of fun. And if some of these younger guys, if one or two more of these younger guys end up being full-time major league players, all of a sudden you're talking about, whatever, Volpe, Dominguez, Wells, Ben Rice as a hitting core. And that's really impressive. And then you can use Aaron Judge and you have the Yankees money and you can go out and you can build a team. For the 2025 season, look, I think that a lot worse teams have won the World Series or gone deep into the playoffs. I also want to watch them for this season, right? Like, I don't want to ignore the Yankees. What are we going to talk about in this podcast in August and September if they throw in the towel? So I hope they don't, even if it ends up being a team that's on the playoff bubble and we're not sure if they're going to make a playoff that last week. It's fun. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Fun if they're playing the kids. If Ben Rice is getting the at-bats, it's fun. If the Yankees are trying to win the pennant and giving at-bats to Dominic Smith and they pick up Franchi Cordero type players because they think, and Lance Lynn, if that's what they're doing to try to win a pennant rather than giving the innings to Will Warren and things like that, then I'll be frustrated. If they're going with this core and they're letting the kids get the experience, I'm okay with that. By throwing in the towel, I'm sort of saying, like, you admit, like, yeah, Dom Smith isn't the answer, and we're not going to win it this year. We could get something for Goldschmidt because some team wants him for the stretch drive. Maybe some team picks up Carlos Rodon.
I think it's a little early to have that conversation. Right? I'm pumped for the season. This is going to be a fun team. I think it's going to be a team that has more athleticism and defense and base running than we've seen in a long time.
I don't think they have the pitching.
I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. They still have Max Fried, right? They still have.
He's like a 5-inning pitcher.
Max Fried is one of the best pitchers in baseball, right? This is 2025. Like, of course, like, pitchers aren't going to go deep into games. And I think Max Fried goes deeper than that, if I remember correctly. If I look at his game log from last year, we've got, a lot. I think you're just dead wrong about the 5-inning thing. If you look at his game log, he's going 6 and 7 and 8 a lot. Max Fried's an ace, and I don't think that's frankly debatable. But behind Max Fried, right? Like, there's a world where this goes really wrong, where Rodon goes bad, Stroman goes bad, Schmidt, Warren, there's a lot of uncertainty there. That's just baseball, right? There's a lot of teams out there that have bad rotations. And then I look at the Texas Rangers when they won the World Series. That team had no pitching. Hell, the Dodgers had 3 starting pitchers going into the playoffs last year. So I think again, I think it's a little early. I think there's a lot of variance in the pitching staff. There's a lot of variance in the hitting. And I am more concerned about the hitting than the pitching. I think the Yankees will figure it out on pitching. I think that you can find pitchers on the trade market. Probably not right now, but you can find them. I think there's a chance that Luis Gil comes back and is really good. I think that, like these are all live possibilities. And even if you have an average pitching staff, the Yankees could still win 88 games with a good hitting a good lineup. To me, the question is really like, can these young guys do it? I mean, we remember when they called up all the young guys in 2023 and they fell flat in their face, every single one of them. And, we were questioning basically like, is there any future for this young core? And now they get another chance. It's 2 years later. They've had Wells prove himself a lot in I think a really impressive way. You have Jason Dominguez, who was a part of that 2023 team and then had Tommy John surgery. I think he's looking great right now. And then
hold on. I'm just going to push back a little bit on the 5-inning thing. June 11th, 5 innings. June 17th, 5.1. June 23rd, 6. June 29th, 6. July 5th, 6. July 11th, 6. Injured.
May 5th, 7. May 11th, 7.
August 4th,
May 14th,
3.
4 and a
August
third.
10th, 5. August 15th, 5. For 2 months, he never touched the 7th inning. And he missed 3 weeks with an
September
injury.
6th, 7. September 11th, 6. September 16th, 6. September 21, 6. September 27, 8 2/3. Like, this is modern baseball. I hate to tell you this, but this is how baseball works today, right? Like, if I went and looked at...
He's not... I like Max. I loved the signing, and I loved him as the number 2. I've seen this before, where the guy who's supposed to be the complimentary second good guy thrusts into the number 1 guy, and all of a sudden, it just goes south.
I think that you are narrating Garrett Cole too much, right? Like Garrett Cole, I think that if you were had to choose between Max Fried and Garrett Cole, you choose Max Fried. I don't think anyone in baseball argues with this. Garrett Cole is, he won the Cy Young in 2023. The rest of his Yankees career, he has been very good, but he has not been Justin Verlander, right? Like he's a guy who has allowed runs, who sometimes goes deep innings, sometimes doesn't. I mean, this is a guy who his career high was with the Yankees at 209, or his career high with the Yankees is 209 innings. Max Fried
has never pitched 200 innings.
Sure. And look, I think we're going to, at some point, Max Fried is going to go on the IL, right? But I think that Max Fried got paid the contract he did and would have gotten paid that from every other team, right? If that's the way to say it, right? The Yankees were not going out on a limb. They were picking the number 1 guy in baseball Baseball America's prospect list, number 1. That's what they did with Fried. He is, I believe, is the ERA leader since the pandemic in baseball. I think Garrett Cole is up there as well, but Max Fried, I believe, is number 1. He's an athlete. Like I am not at all concerned about Max Fried. Even his injuries, like he pitched 28 starts in 2021, 30 in 2028, 14 in 2023. I forget what his injury was. 29 in 2024. Like this is not Giancarlo Stanton with the Marlins, right? Like this is a guy who, for the most part, goes out there and plays and pitches a normal amount of innings. Like the Tarek Skubal won the Cy Young last year. How many innings did Tarek Skubal pitch? He pitched. I have no idea. Tarek Skubal last year pitched 192. Right.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you one last comparison. How much do you consider another guy I wish the Yankees got, but there was a lot of pushback. A lot of people said Blake Snell. No, no. If you look at their stats, they're very similar.
Blake Snell is a great pitcher. He's won 2 Cy Youngs, right?
That's what I say.
I think they're very similar pitchers.
Would you have been happy if the Yankees had gotten Blake Snell? Very few people wanted that.
Look, I think the problem with Blake Snell is that I think he is a pitcher who is on a knife's edge. That is because he has such bad control, because he's a nibbler. I've heard people say he's incredibly frustrating to watch. I haven't watched a ton of Blake Snell starts, only when he's beaten the Yankees. Actually, I think the Yankees have done pretty well against him, but that's a different thing. I think my concern with Blake Snell was always that if he loses a little bit of stuff, he cannot afford to walk as many guys as he does. And when Blake Snell has not won Cy Young awards, that's basically the version of him that you see, which is still good, still able to prevent runs, but pitches really is a 5-inning pitcher. I mean, much more than Max Fried. Like I'm looking at his I'll find his game log, but like Blake Snell,
last year,
I think Blake Snell famously has never gone 7 innings, right?
Well, no, July 9th, 5, July 14th, 7, July 22, 6, July 27, 6, August 2nd, 9.
Yeah,
August
I mean
7th, 6.
That inning, I'm willing to bet that innings per start is lower than Max Fried. And regardless, again, these are very normal for baseball today.
Right. But I'm saying a lot of people said no Blake Snell, and Max Fried and his numbers, his winning percentage. Max Fried is better, but Blake he's not that.
There's I'll take either. Like I think I'd love to have Blake Snell in this rotation right now. That'd be great.
Yeah, me too.
I think
you agree. Then
you agree. I think you have to compare the Yankees rotation to their competition. So if you look at Max Scherzer, is he going to pitch 200 innings? No. Right. You look at Garrett Crochet. He pitched 150 innings and made a note of saying, I'm not pitching anymore unless you give me an extension. Right. That's something right there.
The guy I don't want on my team.
You go to the Orioles, right? They lost their 200 inning guy. And now their number one pitcher is Zach Eflin on roster resource, who had pitched 165 innings last year. If you go and you look at the other Great American League teams. So let's go look at the Houston Astros. If you go look at the Houston Astros, their top pitcher is currently Framber Valdez, and Framber Valdez pitched 176 innings last year. Like, this is normal for a major league rotation. I am not concerned about Fried. I'm concerned about Stroman and Will Warren and Carlos Carrasco and all those guys. And it would be nice to have one fewer of those guys in this rotation and replace them with Garrett Cole. I still think the Yankees are going to, right now, have an advantage in starting pitching. I think they have a better starting pitching staff than their competition. I think they're better than Baltimore, clearly. Baltimore's number 2 is Charlie Morton, right? I mean, Charlie Morton's like 42. Right? Like you and Charlie Morton are could have a competition for the Orioles spot.
If that's true, my opening day is on April 6th. I've got time for the Orioles to bring me to spring training.
You might have a better fastball than Carlos Carrasco, right? I mean,
listen, I love the Yankees, but I'd love to get on the mound and strike out Aaron Judge. I mean, if I'm going to be an Oriole, I'll wear the orange proudly.
The Rays' top starting pitcher is Shane McClanahan, who's coming off of Tommy John surgery. If I go to the Blue Jays, I think their top pitcher, they at least on the depth chart, is either Berrios, who's coming off a not great season, Kevin Gausman coming off a not great season, or Scherzer. Yeah, or Chris Bassett, right? These are guys who are very much in the Carlos Rodon tier. Maybe Scherzer has some magic still left in. Like, I'm not going to bet against Max Scherzer. But like the Yankees, like if you just look at their competition, this is just how Major League Baseball starting pitching goes. And I think the Yankees, I have faith in their ability to develop, to turn magic out of pitching, especially in the bullpen. They've been able to do it over the years. They haven't done it a lot for starters because they've had mostly a healthy starting staff, but they did it for someone did it for Nestor Cortez. Right.
Great
like
points. You're making great points.
Even like Johnny Brito, like, wasn't awful, right? He was not good. He was not someone that you wish that was in the rotation. He's, I believe, a starter for the Padres right now. But he had a 4.28 ERA for the Yankees, right? It's a little bit worse fit. Probably got a little lucky there. I know he was a little better when he first came up and was a little worse when he came up later. But like, I have faith that the Yankees can hack together a starting pitching staff that's not great, but is average. And then you add Max Fried on top of that, and you add a really good bullpen on top of that. The player it amazes me that we just never talk about, maybe because we haven't seen him pitch that much, because he's like pitched like one spring training game, is Devin Williams. Like, the Yankees just went out and got the best closer in the game. Full stop, right? Like, Devin Williams is incredible. I saw his one spring training out bat, and I don't know how he throws his changeup. I don't know why everyone else in the world doesn't throw his changeup. Their changeup like that. That pitch is nasty. I think that I think that it is too early to, I'm not going to say panic. Maybe I am concerned about the Yankees pitching depth. I think it's too early to just declare that this is not a good pitching staff. If you told me that this is the third best pitching staff in the American League next year, like, I'll buy you. I'll believe it. Like, but the Mariners are better, but they also have the home ballpark, and like the Royals, maybe if they're counting on Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans to be incredible again. But like that's it. That's the competition.
All right, you took me off the edge.
Can I talk you on to the Ben Rice train?
All right, let's talk.
All right, so Ben Rice. I don't know what his role is going to be yet, and I think we can talk about that. But I want to talk about his hitting. I've watched a lot of Ben Rice during spring training. I've always liked Ben Rice. I think he's just one of those players that just obviously has a lot of hitting talent. The Yankees there's like that weird story. The Yankees just kind of found him out of nowhere, and beginning in, I think, middle of 2023, since then, he's basically been the best hitter in the minor leagues. They bring him up. He's overexposed at the major league level. They have him like batting leadoff and stuff. It's kind of weird. And they send him back down. He hits like 7 home runs in 2 weeks. Like he just goes crazy when they send him back down. He actually had a bad couple of weeks when they first sent him back down. Like he was in some kind of funk from the major leagues, and it took him a while to fix that.
That happens though. That does happen.
He comes into camp, and whenever anybody in Yankees camp, Aaron Boone and a few others are asked, who stands out? What player stands out as doing something over the offseason? They're like Ben Rice. And then you look at Ben Rice on video, dude has put on muscle, like a lot of muscle. And maybe that means he's not going to be a great catcher. I mean, catchers don't put on a lot of muscle sometimes for a good reason. There are some really big catchers out there. Ben Rice is not a massive human being, but, I think is it might, it wasn't a great defensive catcher to begin with, as far as we know, though we said that about Austin Wells. So right now, DH maybe. But the upside of him putting on all of that extra muscle is that, well, we can look at his I'm trying to bring up his StatCast stats right now. Unfortunately, I don't think StatCast will let me do this easily for spring training. He's hitting the ball 110 miles an hour plus a lot, frequently. He had never done that before tracked on StatCast. I think he had one 110 mile an hour ball tracked on StatCast last year. And everything else was like 102, 103, which is pretty good. 103. Like we're not in Aaron Judge world. Hitting the ball 100 miles an hour, you're doing pretty good. A barrel, quote unquote, is 95 miles an hour from that stat. He is hitting the ball harder than I have seen any Yankee not named Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge in camp. Now, did he hit the ball 113 miles an hour a bunch of times, like in the minors when he wasn't tracked? Maybe. He was tracked last year in spring training in AAA and didn't do it. Mike Whiteman, Aaron Judge in 2016. The difference is Aaron Judge never did it in the minors, right? Aaron Judge broke out in the majors. He was a good hitter in the minors, but was never an excellent hitter in the minors. And Ben Rice was called up early, right? Like we knew, like he was called up out of necessity, not because he was ready. He didn't have a lot of play appearances in the upper minors.
It's an interesting comparison, Michael. Judge was bad, and
right? Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of players who are bad, though, right? Like, not most of them didn't turn into Aaron Judge, but like he was asked to play first base. He was asked to lead off at one point after he hit a bunch of balls. Well, I mean, they have no one. The team was so thin that like but this is before Gleyber Torres kind of filled that role. But I think something has changed. Like I think he actually has kind of added something. And he's added something to a pretty high baseline. Like if I just look up Ben Rice's stats overall, I won't even kind of do that split where he was in a funk for a while. I mean, in the minors, he is a career 935 OPS hitter, a 399 on base, 536 slug. At AAA, he has a career OPS of 1.08, right? Incredible. He basically broke out in mid 2022. Or mid 2023, I forget 2022, and has been just incredible since then. He seems like a smart guy. I like Ben Rice. I forget he went to some fancy college. I forget where he went to.
Yeah, didn't he? Dartmouth?
Something like that.
No.
Yeah. It was in New England, so it might have been Dartmouth. I think I think everything is pointing toward Ben Rice being a potential breakout, and I think he just won the DH job. I think the Yankees probably kind of were leaning toward Dom Smith. They still had Rice are having Rice catch a little bit, so I wonder if he's going to catch a little bit on top of DHing. Maybe you DH Austin. Maybe you alternate DH between Austin Wells and Ben Rice. That'd be kind of fun. I think JC Escara is looking like a great catcher and a good hitter on his own. He's doing really well. So you might have that.
I carry a backup catcher if I'm the Yankees, and then Ben Rice is my third catcher.
Yeah, and he could play first base, and you need a DH right now, so like it doesn't really matter. I think we're going to see Ben Rice as your opening day DH. And I think there's a good chance that he is your second or third best hitter on this team very quickly. And if that is the case, then you're talking about a guy who's he's 25 years old or 24, 26 years old, under team control for a long time. May be able to fake at catcher, play first base, DH, whatever. You're talking about like another really important core piece, and hitting is so hard to come by these days. He doesn't have to hit that much to be really good. Like if he had an 800 OPS, like we're set. Like that's great. That's better than anything we've had DH and Stanton got bad. And really he's going to challenge Stanton if Stanton comes back healthy.
Well,
I think
the scenario you're presenting, Ben Rice, yeah, sign me up. I'll go to games. I won't mind if the Yankees win 75 games if Ben Rice is developing and Jason Dominguez is developing and Oswald Peraza is developing and Austin Wells. Look, then I'm excited for 2026.
And we'll talk about them every day, right? Every week we can talk about those guys. That's fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun. My frustration will be if we're watching Giancarlo Stanton and DJ LeMahieu comes off the DL and he's playing and DJ and Stanton and Dominic Smith. If this is the way the Yankees go,
I agree, but I think this is different from past years. I think it's different from past years because these guys are ready. Right?
I hope.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: they're ready. That doesn't mean that they're good, right? Like that. Like in 2023, they were not ready. They called a bunch of guys up. They gave them a ton of playing time at the end of the year, and Everson Pereira flopped, and Anthony Volpe got bad, and I'm trying to think of the other guys. Jason Dominguez got injured, unfortunately. He looked like
Florial, I think, got a couple of at-bats in there.
Florial got some at-bats. Peraza got some at-bats. And they were either not talented.
Cabrera.
Florial. Cabrera got a bunch of at-bats. Cabrera, I don't think, is all that talented. But they were thrown into the deep end and they drowned. And I think that the difference is if you look at the players we're talking about now, I think Jason Dominguez is ready. He looks good. He's, especially the last week or two, he's really hitting in the ball well. And I saw some tweet that he was clocked at faster than Bobby Witt for a home to first, which is crazy. I kind of doubt that, but Jason Dominguez, to me, he feels ready. I think he's the one where you don't really have an insurance policy. So if he's not good, you got to trade for somebody. You're kind of out of luck. You've got Ben Rice, who again, I think is potentially on the verge of a breakout. You have Austin Wells, who I think we've already kind of seen what he's got. I think Anthony Volpe, if the worst case scenario is he is what he is last year, I think that they're fine. I think there's a world where he looks a little better. Jury's out on the spring at the moment. It doesn't. All of these guys don't have to hit, but if a few of them do, you're talking about a really fun, interesting team. You add on top of that Jazz Chisholm, right? More athletic than any player we've seen in a long time. And is going to be in his natural second base position. I hope he can hit a little better. Cody Bellinger's looking great right now. Right, he's hitting 500 this spring, and frankly, he's hitting the ball harder than he did last year, which is an interesting thing. Also, is pulling the ball right down the line, right into the short porch. I like that. Classically trained 29-year-old center fielder. I think that's great. I think all these signs on the hitting side all point to a fun team to watch and that the Yankees are making the right choices. Now, I agree with you. If a week from now we get the opening day roster and it's going to be Dom Smith and it's going to be, DJ LeMahieu is coming off the IL and he's going to play third base, like whatever, right? Like I reserve the right to be angry with the Yankees and think it's not fun, but I think we're getting the fun team right now.
All right. Well, I'm going to take your word on it. EJ. We're at 59 minutes and 51 seconds. We have 9 seconds to say. Everybody, thank you for watching. EJ, love your perspectives. You talked me off the edge. I'm getting excited again. I was getting frustrated, but I'm excited again. Everybody, thank you for watching the Start Spreading the News podcast. Have a great night.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24